I'm just saying.
This video was made possible.
Oh no, not honey! Oh, guys! Oh no, guys, they didn't know! Guys, they didn't know! They didn't know back then, okay? We didn't know what we know now. Yeah. Know what? Guys, don't use honey.
It's a rum, a mug of hard cider, and a full bottle of wine. Oh boy! Oh, I'm running late. I'll have to take it with me. Don't forget your lunch. It's a 6-pack of beer, a flask of whiskey, 6 shots of tequila, and as a special treat, a banana. Aw, gee whiz. I'm gonna be smashed today. Enjoy your day of operating sharp, dangerous farm equipment. I can't believe this is an acceptable way to live. God bless America. Okay, gotta go.
USA! USA!
I love my life!
Oh yeah. Wasn't there like a problem like in America with men like getting drunk and then coming home and then like you know what I mean? Like without me saying it? Like wasn't part of the push against alcohol because like
America, the land of beautiful strip malls, top-class infrastructure.
No, please
and
elaborate in
wonderful urban
detail.
sprawl.
I think I'll let the video do that for me.
Beautiful America. But what's the most American thing you can think of?
Hydration.
The Statue of Liberty? Mount Rushmore? A crazy
The
lady
most
in a...
American thing I can think of? McDonald's. I don't agree. I don't even think alcohol is that American, but it's okay. It's okay. It's fine. I mean, I don't think prohibition should have happened, but I don't really think of alcohol when I think of America. If anything, the countries I think of alcohol with is like Germany for beer and Italy for wine and shit like that. Oh, and Russia for vodka. But when I think of America, I never really think of alcohol, but that might be because I'm not a drinker. Hydration. Oh. Oh. America's Coke. Yeah, America's soda. If America is a beverage, it's soda. Maybe it was different back in the day.
Mobility scooter yelling at a pigeon?
Well, it was, because Coke wasn't always a thing. I sound stupid, okay? Don't listen to me.
What if I told you the answer is alcohol? That's right. When the Puritans arrived on America's shores, they brought a ship packed with beer. George Washington provided his men with a daily cup of whiskey. Andrew Jackson's inauguration party left the White House so trashed that everybody had to be ordered outside. Frederick Douglass said whiskey made him feel like a president. Me too, Frederick. Me too. Americans drank at breakfast. Doctors prescribed their patients hard liquor. In the 19th century, Americans drank 3 times as much as their modern-day counterparts. That's a lot of whiskey. Hey, Jerry, how's that report coming
That is a
along?
lot of whiskey.
Already done, sir. I've also organized your paperwork, watered your flowers, and been a father figure to your children. Wait a minute. What's that smell? Have you been drinking at work? No, sir, I would never. Well, why not? Everyone else is doing it, but I got all my work done. You're fired!
He's
Americans
dead.
drink at work.
This really
They drink
happened,
at
by the way.
raisings, baptisms, and public hangings.
Baptism?
Heavy drinking was so normal that it was as American as apple pie. Hi, everyone. My name's Ron, and I'm an alcoholic. Get over yourself, Ron.
But guys, I mean, it's pretty crazy that they would just like do it publicly. Like, yeah, you want to see us hang this criminal? Come on over. Bring your beer. We're hanging the criminal.
All alcoholics. But more and more Americans began to wonder whether all of this truly was a normal way to live. Were Americans drinking, perhaps, a little too much? Well, one group in particular thought the answer to that was yes. You know them, you love them. Woman.
I'm done with this video. How dare they criticize? How dare they criticize women? Carradine, welcome. Hi. Hi. Gex the Serpent.
Drinking 3 or more bottles of gin per day.
Jesus fucking Christ. Slicks McGee, thank you for the 300 biddies. I appreciate it. Blah blah. Fucking 5 years old having more than 3 bottles of gin a day? Can you imagine going to like your fucking pediatrician as a kid and they ask you, so how often do you drink? And you're like, I'm 5. And they're like, how often do you drink, kid? And then you drop the fucking kid accent and you're like, at least 5 whiskeys a day, doc. Also, Gex the Server, thank you so much for the sub 6 months even. Holy shit, base, let's go, welcome.
Oh crap, woman, run!
No, not the
Hang
women.
on.
They're ruining
just
our
want
fun.
to talk. Woman talking in public? That's outrageous. Come on, Fred. You've got 2 kids and a wife at home. Yet here you are spending your entire paycheck on booze. And you, Dr. Spanky, you were on the cusp of discovering time travel. But what did you discover instead? The sweet, sweet joys of whiskey.
Many
That's
such
right.
cases.
Alcohol. It's destroying our families, our jobs, and our homes. She's right. She's right. Hang on, men. Don't let them get to you. This saloon is our safe space where our wives and children can't annoy us with reality, where we're free to be real men. Right.
They're having gay sex in there.
And what is it real men do? Take care of their families. I don't know what she's talking about. Do you take care of your family? No.
I love the whispering.
We drink beer, we shoot guns, and we mud wrestle.
See, they're gay! I told you they're gay!
As America's heavy drinking ruined more and more lives, moral resistance began to arise, and women were at the forefront, taking matters into their own hands at a time when women doing just about anything was shocking. They'd had enough of being victim to their husband's heavy drinking, and they were going to do something unprecedented. You're going to what? I'm going to protest. Oh, sweetie.
It's funny to
Women
be
can't
fair.
protest.
Hydration, thank you.
Starting in Ohio, before spreading nationwide, women began a crusade against alcohol. They marched through towns and cities, singing hymns, gathering outside saloons, and praying on their knees. Women praying was so terrifying that in some towns, schools were shut.
Wait until women find out that you don't need alcohol to be a deadbeat or abusive. It's going to be insane.
And business.
Yeah, honey, keep telling yourself, if he just wouldn't drink, he'd be nice to me. If he just wouldn't drink, he'd take care of my children. No! He's a fucking deadbeat!
Business stagnated. On one occasion, firemen were called out to hose down the dangerous praying women. On another, the owner of a beer garden reportedly held a cannon outside and threatened to reduce the savage women to dust. Nevertheless, they persisted. They formed the WCTU in 1874. And they organized. They set up homes for inebriate women. They installed water fountains in public parks. They wrote textbooks for school children that contained some interesting claims about drinking alcohol.
What?
Here's little Timmy. Uh-oh. Looks like Timmy's gonna have his first drink.
Timmy?
He's taking a small sip of whiskey, and Timmy has spontaneously combusted. The end. The woman's efforts weren't in vain.
That is how it
in small
works.
towns across
That's
America,
why I don't
drugstores
drink,
agreed
not
to
even
stop
once.
fulfilling prescriptions for alcohol. Men committed themselves to giving up drink. Inspired by the woman's moral fervor, some saloon owners closed their doors. The Women's Crusade and other temperance movements were forcing people to reconsider alcohol's role in society, and more people began to side with the growing temperance movement. Many states had even begun enacting their own dry laws that restricted the sale and use of alcohol. One of them was Kansas, where alcohol had been outlawed since 1881.
Kansas?
Despite this, many illegal saloons remained open, and authorities had done just about nothing to stop them. One woman
Because they're going there. Because they're going there. Because they fucking go there to drink, bro.
disgusted by what she saw, decided she would take the law into her own hands. And not just any woman, a terrifying, hatchet-wielding, sweet old lady named Carrie
She's
Nation.
so ugly.
Armed with her trusty hatchet and a bag of what she called smashers, she traveled from town to town
Smashers?
visiting saloons. But she wasn't there to get smashed. She was there
To smash!
The men could do nothing but cower as
No
sweet little
way.
Carrie hulked out and tore the place to
Guys, look how bad alcohol is. It'll make you pick up a hatchet and start throwing it at people. Oh, wait, she was the sober one.
shreds. She went to Kiowa and smashy smashed. Wichita, smashy smash. Topeka, smashy smash. On a couple of occasions, she was arrested, but each time they were like, okay, Carrie, we're gonna let you go so long as you promise to be a good girl and not smash up any more saloons, okay? Screw you, pig! Yeah, I think she's gonna be all right. Smash, smash, smash. Carrie's tactics shocked the other members of the
Oh my
Women's
God,
Christian
she's
Temperance
hulking
Union,
out.
but she assured them, and this is a quote, ladies, you do not know how much joy you will have until you smash, smash, smash. Carrie became
Is this a real quote? Because if that's a real quote, she doesn't give a fuck about outlawing alcohol. She just wants to kill. She just wants to fucking murder. If she was born in this fucking generation, she would have been a fucking headline at like a school, okay?
a household name, and she hoped her unusual tactics would spread across the country. But unfortunately, many of the women's movements eventually slowed down. Why? Well, because of this kind of thing. Thelma, I ripped my pants again. Ugh, well, you'll have to sew them yourself because I'm going out protesting.
He doesn't even
What?
know how to do
I don't know
that.
how to sew.
I knew
Burn the house down and get eaten by alligators. What? Don't be stupid, Mitch. Look, I've got to go. Call me stupid?
So
She's the
learn.
one.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine extra? Okay? No. Let's be a little bit logical about this. Can you imagine being a woman in this generation and then you look your drunkard husband in the eyes and you say, you learn how to sew. You know what's gonna happen? Let's see you do it, extra.
Hey, Thelma! Look who's stupid now! See, while the women were out protesting, there
Is
was
that
nobody
sex
to do
noise?
the
Oh, it
cooking
could
and
be.
cleaning and being seen and not heard, and they gradually had to return to their duties at home. But where the women had got the ball rolling, a new movement was about to take that ball all the way to Washington, D.C. I'm talking about the Anti-Saloon League. The Anti-Saloon League was a political pressure group run by a very sweet-looking old man. But don't let that deceive you. This guy was an evil genius. While the women's movements were interested in a whole range of issues, Wayne Wheeler and the Anti-Saloon League only cared about enemy number one, Mr. Alcohol.
No way. No way. So the women were actually talking about more than just alcohol, but then the guys were like, you know what? All those other things, I don't know about all that, but the alcohol, they're right. And so now those women are remembered as being alcohol-hated bitches by everyone, including me, because the video itself didn't even mention any of that except in passing. So I'm just going to assume that all they cared about was alcohol and they were stupid.
They were extremely effective. They were able to exploit the fears of the American people. And I mean everyone's fears.
What fears?
Here's how they did it. Hello, sir. Welcome to the Liberal Progressive Rally.
Okay.
Why don't you introduce yourself? Well, I'm Patty, and I'm an immigrant from Ireland. And tell me, Patty, do you drink? Oh, yes. I drink a lot. See, folks, people like Patty come here looking for a better life, only to end up drunk in the gutter. Don't worry, sir. We're gonna help you.
But drinking is
You're doing
Irish
great.
culture.
I just need you for one more thing. Hey, Christian conservatives. This is Patty. He's a dirty Catholic Irish immigrant who's come to destroy America with his alcohol-fueled debauchery! Workers were told alcohol was a capitalist ploy to keep them subjugated. Factory owners were told alcohol was making their irresponsible workers lazy. The black community was warned alcohol was hindering its progress, while racists were warned alcohol would turn black men into brutes. In one of the most confusing eras of American politics, totally opposing groups found themselves agreeing on at least one thing: alcohol was bad. The Anti-Saloon League also made great use of propaganda, something prohibitionists have been doing for decades. Take this specimen, for example.
This is the only time this ever worked,
if you
apparently.
start drinking. Let's see. First you take a drink, you get a little rowdy. Okay. You make some new friends. Nice. Then you become homeless. You turn to crime. And
what the fuck?
But the most effective tactic Wheeler used to force prohibition on America was pressure politics. In any election he could, Wheeler
Guys,
very
it was a
successfully
stunt gun. It's
rounded up
not
support
real.
against any politician who was in favor of alcohol. In Ohio alone, he had 70 state representatives and the popular Republican governor ousted from office and replaced with prohibitionists. Suddenly, every politician in America was afraid of Wayne Wheeler. Even those who enjoyed alcohol in private began pretending to be against it in public.
That sounds like
alcohol
a cartoon villain name.
Malicious. Sorry, Wayne. I'm really drunk right now. Then it really hit the fan in 1917, when America found itself fighting in the First World War against Germany. Anti-German sentiment exploded. Sauerkraut became Liberty cabbage. German measles became Liberty measles. And Dachshunds became the embodiment of evil. See, America? You've always been this way. The biggest brewers in America were German, and Wheeler saw to it that drinking alcohol became akin to pro-German treason. The German brewers desperately tried to fight back, creating their own propaganda, presenting beer as a healthy beverage, one that you could even give to your kids. As you can imagine,
what the hell is that outfit?
President Wilson instituted some temporary wartime prohibition measures to save grain for food. And with many in the country now in support of prohibition, all that was left was to make it law. One problem was that taxes on alcohol made up nearly 40% of the US government's annual revenue. And the government wasn't just about to give that up. No problem.
I can't believe they managed to turn it into a law, and then it just was a complete and total failure. How does this happen?
The Anti-Saloon League helped lobby for the creation of a new income tax on the American people. And just like that, the government was no longer reliant on alcohol. Prohibition was finally introduced to Congress in 1913, not just as a law, but a constitutional amendment. In 1917, as the House held their final vote on the Prohibition Amendment, Wheeler was watching from the gallery. You spineless cowards. I know half of you drink, yet here you are bowing down to Ned Flanders up there. Look at him, like he's some kind of Caesar. Ugh, don't be so dramatic. I obviously don't think I'm Caesar. Now release the lions. In the end, Prohibition passed the House easily, 282 votes to 128, and the states ratified the new amendment by 1919. America, a nation obsessed with liberty and freedom, had just voluntarily given up its private right to choose whether or not to drink alcohol.
I mean, does it shock you? Does it shock you? 1016, welcome. I love that they didn't get rid of the income tax afterwards. Wait. Income tax? They could have gotten rid of it and they didn't? I'll never forgive them. I'll never forgive the people in history. It is unforgivable. How dare they? America loves banning things that should be a choice, you know? Like weed. It's still crazy to me that that's not just left up to the person who wants to consume it. Like, that's still an insanity to me. And there's a bunch of other different examples I won't go into. Those are a little
Yeah, it
too
is crazy
political,
how
so...
prohibition
We
directly
did it.
led to the federal income tax.
Kyle, thanks for the 500 biddies. Fuck the federal income tax.
Folks, we fixed everything. America will be perfect forever. But you just dissolved America's 5th largest industry and lost tens of thousands of jobs for us immigrants. No, you idiot. You don't get it. We helped you, idiot. Ugh,
Idiot.
I could really go for a beer. Oh, no. Immediately after Prohibition went into effect, alcohol consumption in America decreased as Americans followed the law and tried not drinking. Man, if we're gonna be law-abiding good boys, we need something else to fill the dark, lonely void that delicious beer once did.
Like, drinking.
How about we crack open a nice cold
Moonshine!
can
Moonshine!
of water?
Oh.
Hell yeah. Toss it over.
Oh.
Nah, this isn't doing it for me. Let's try
Oh.
knitting. This isn't filling the dark void at all. Wanna play some kites? Ah, screw it. Let's go get some illegal beer. Well, it seemed like many Americans supported Prohibition. After the law went into effect, it seemed like
Maybe video gaming saves men from becoming alcoholics because life is so hard, but then video games came and it replaced it and it gave people hobbies again. Like base video gaming saving us from pure alcoholism, right?
just as many Americans intended to keep on drinking, and they would go on to find a variety of ways to break the new law. Here's a question for you. Do you like breaking the law? Well, shame.
No! I pay for every subscription service legally! I hate breaking the law!
on you. Or do you like saving money when you shop online? Then you should
Not
use...
this again! Not this again! No, guys. Guys. I got it. Don't worry. I got you. I saved you. You're welcome. I love you, Chatty.
Where were we? Oh yeah. Punching Patty, passing Prohibition, and procuring pints. Pretty soon after the new law went into effect, the failures of Prohibition were already beginning to rear their ugly heads. For starters, the details of the new Prohibition law, written by none other than Wayne Wheeler himself, turned out to be more draconian than expected. Many Prohibition supporters only wanted to outlaw hard liquor and hoped beer would remain legal, but the Volstead Act outlawed anything over 0.5%. That would make Liberty Cabbage illegal. Secondly,
Liberty
the new law was full
Cabbage!
of loopholes that Americans very quickly began to exploit. For example, while the sale and manufacture of liquor was illegal, drinking it wasn't. And you could also keep any
What?
alcohol you had before the law went into effect. So many private clubs hoarded huge amounts of alcohol
That's
that saw them through
insanely
the entire
stupid.
Prohibition period.
What?
Whiskey intended for medicinal purposes was also allowed, and doctors basically became bartenders. It looked
This
as
was
though
so
a full-on
poorly
epidemic
thought
had
out.
broken out, as there was a sudden surge in prescriptions for whiskey. Sacramental wines used by churches and synagogues were also permitted. Orders for communion wine suspiciously skyrocketed by millions of gallons. And as
Nagan,
rabbis had
welcome.
access to religious wine, suddenly everyone was becoming a rabbi. You had Rabbi Pat O'Leary, Rabbi LL Cool J, Rabbi Fluffy. But don't worry,
Cool
I'm
J.
sure all these definitely legitimate religious figures couldn't possibly be selling wine in the back alley after Mass. Yep, definitely nothing strange going on here. New products also hit the shelves in stores, such as Vine Glow. a
Vine
brick
Glow!
of dehydrated grape juice, itself not alcoholic, and therefore perfectly legal. But the packaging did contain a strangely specific warning. After dissolving the brick in a gallon of water, do not place the liquid in a jug in the cupboard for 20 days, because then it would turn into wine. I'll take 1,000.
You sound like the people who are like, please don't go to this website because it illegally provides free textbooks for your college classes, which is illegal and against the law, and you don't want to participate in that.
Yes, sir. Now, at this point, I want you to think back for me, if you will, to the year 2005. You're the coolest kid around, and you convince your parents to rent the greatest movie of all time from your local Blockbuster. But the movie starts with a strange message. Something about not downloading a car? You immediately
I would.
disregard that and hop on Kazaa to download the greatest song of all time, and in the process, drain your dad's bank account with copious amounts of ransomware. You were breaking the law.
I totally
you
never
bad
did
boy
this.
or girl, but did anyone come to arrest you? No. That's my point. If no one's enforcing a law while everyone's breaking it, is it really a law? And so it was with Prohibition. See, the conservative-led governments of the decade were also the kind of people who believed in small government spending. So they'd passed a law that would be extremely difficult to enforce, but also didn't want to spend any of the money required to enforce it. The newly created Bureau of Prohibition only had 1,500 agents to cover the entire country. That's one agent for every 70,000.
I love how that anti-piracy ad backfired and actually increased piracy. It's very ironic because I have seen something in the VTuber community recently where someone is criticizing an act of piracy in the community, and 9 times out of 10, when you draw attention to piracy and the fact that it's happening, you're just telling people that there is a way to pirate that content. Like, you're spreading awareness about it, right? And you're telling people where to find it. And you can say as many times as you want, this is bad, I wish this wasn't happening. I'm sure you have good intentions, but when you spread it around, you're actually helping people find it when they otherwise could not have. So a lot of the time when it's piracy, it just has the pure opposite effect.
666 Americans in a massive country with 12,000 miles of coastline and one gigantic land border with Canada. Good luck, schmuckos. And all these clever little loopholes people were using to score illegal booze were only just the beginning. America was about to devolve into alcohol-fueled criminal chaos. By outlawing it, Prohibition had made alcohol a precious commodity, and millions of Americans would become outlaws as they found a variety of ways to score illegal booze. For example, many Americans began making their own liquor, illegal stills.
If we're all criminals, then none of us are. Hold on, I'm gonna read this real quick. It was Prohibition that gave the last push to give birth to organized crime from criminal gangs with town to coast scale influence, a true criminal enterprise seeking to expand worldwide. Well, yeah. When something become illegal, Mafia profit. Very true, very real, many such cases.
From making moonshine were found by Prohibition agents from the hills of Kentucky and the caves of Arizona to parking lots in major cities, and even in the homes of Prohibition-supporting politicians. Oh, come on now, fellas, I voted for Prohibition. I'm not gonna have an illegal still. What's this? That's my son, Freddie. So say hi, Freddie. Sir, this is obviously an illegal still.
Sorry, I'm in the way.
How dare you? Hey,
He's a
what's this in
bat.
the bathtub? That's bath water.
Oh, there he is.
Why does it taste like alcohol? Here's a better question. Why are you tasting my bath water?
Yeah, freak.
Weirdo. Come on, Freddie.
He's like, Belle Delphine, I was born in the wrong generation.
Let's get away from these perverts. To discourage moonshining, the government began adding extra toxins to many of the products moonshiners were using, which resulted in many cases of severe illness and death. But alcohol wasn't just being made at home. Along America's vast coastlines, rum runners smuggled alcohol into the country by sea. A floating supermarket.
You know that one visual novel I talk about all the time? Well, not all the time, but I've mentioned it more than once on stream. The one with like the fucking Italian mafia. There's like a whole plot point in the second game how one of them has connections to America and is fucking making money by giving alcohol to America.
Known as Rum Row extended along the East Coast just beyond America's maritime limit, and bootleggers frequently sailed out in small boats to pick up shipments of booze. These bootleggers could then be found selling their illegal products everywhere, even in the holes of Congress. Wow, Pop. One day,
So fucking
I want to
funny.
work here. Well, son, if you work hard and never give up, one day even you could be a massive hypocrite.
This is just like how the cop arrests someone for smoking weed and then goes home and rolls a joint. It's just like today. Time is, again, a circle.
Even President Harding was known to serve his cabinet bootlegged whiskey, and some bootleggers were so successful, they became bazillionaires, such as Roy Olmsted, an ex-cop who became one of the biggest employers in the Seattle area from smuggling booze. Unfortunately, all of his whiskey came from Canada. Yuck.
Ew,
All this criminality
yeah,
was being
ugh.
made possible by copious amounts of corruption. Across the country, armies of government officials were persuaded to turn a blind eye. Bootleggers became so rich, it was no problem to stuff a couple $1,000s into the front pocket of the police chief, or the mayor, or their disapproving mother. And some cops were getting almost as rich as the bootleggers. All right, men, everyone gather in. I've received word that one of you has been taking bribes from bootleggers. Any ideas who? Kevin, perhaps. Got any thoughts? No, sir. Many police officers came from the same communities that drank a lot, and they weren't about to arrest their own granddads for knocking back some homemade gin. But all this isn't to say there was no enforcement. Plenty of government officials were doing their best to enforce the new laws. And some unlucky individuals
Women?
received very harsh penalties, such as a Michigan mother who was sentenced to life in prison for small-scale moonshining. Cases like these were widely reported in the media
That's
and only
so
served to make
fucking
prohibition
funny.
even more unpopular. But not just that. The media also loved to cover the exploits of the most famous bootleggers, turning them into national icons. One of the biggest bootleggers was a man named George Remus. Originally a lawyer, he watched as his
No, I just find it morbidly humorous that they found like the one woman who was an alcoholic in the entirety of America and they put her in jail for life. Like they could have just found some random drunk guy like on the street. It would have been so easy, but they went on the fucking hunt for that shit.
bootlegger clients paid off enormous fines like it was nothing and proclaimed bootlegging's the business for me. But unlike most bootleggers, Remus had big brain, and he came up with a pretty clever system. See, there were millions of gallons of liquor produced before Prohibition that were sitting in distillery warehouses, and it could only be sold with government permission to drug companies. So Remus set up his own drug company and bottled the liquor. Then he set up his own transport
For
company
medical
to
purposes.
transport the liquor. And then he would send his own men out with guns to intercept his own transport vehicles. And this would happen. Hey man,
Hi,
this is a
Robo-Spartan.
stick-up. Oh no, please don't hurt me. I won't hesitate to shoot. Please, I have a wife and kids. Hand over all
Damn, even these little, they're not really stick figures. Even these little blobs look so well dressed. I hate what the internet did to fedoras. I hate it so much. I hate it so much. They're a cool hat. Why do they have such a bad reputation? Please leave the fedoras alone. Leave them alone. 91 Bucky, thanks for the 8 months. I appreciate it. Blah, blah.
the whiskey, Fatty. Hey! Fatty isn't in the script, you jerk!
He is kind of bigger than the other blobs.
Himself, he could then sell it for big bucks. The perfect crime. Unfortunately, Remus was eventually caught by a goody two-shoes prohibition director in Indiana who wouldn't take Remus's bribes, and the government found Remus guilty of violating
Romantic.
the Volstead Act 3,000 times. For 2 years, as Remus sat in prison, his wife promised to take care of all of his money. And by take care of his money, she meant have an affair with a prohibition agent, sell up everything Remus
whore!
owned, and file for divorce. When Remus finally
Prometheus,
got out
welcome.
and found his big fancy mansion empty with his wife gone, he reportedly broke.
How are fedoras ruined? They're not ruined. They're not ruined if you literally don't care at all. If you don't care at all, they're not ruined. But the amount of people who are going to appreciate it as a piece of fashion in this year that is today is next to zero.
Down in tears. A few months later, during their divorce trial, he spotted his wife in a car in Cincinnati. Remus hopped in a cab and asked the driver to run her off the road. The driver was like,
Could you wear a fedora
okay.
though, Lucy?
Then Remus
Yeah,
got out of the
obviously.
cab and shot his wife dead. He immediately handed himself into the police, and his next trial,
And that's what happens to cheating whores. And he went right to the cops too. And he said, I shot my cheating whore wife. I know what you have to do to me. And the cop said, well, I hate to do it.
this time for murder, became a national sensation. Remus defended himself, claiming insanity, occasionally carrying out skillful questioning, occasionally crying in the corner. But the nation felt bad for him. His wife had screwed him over, and so when after just 19 minutes of deliberation, the jury returned and declared him not guilty, the court
Holy
erupted
jury.
into celebration. And just to remind you,
When will juries get based like this again?
this guy bluntly admitted to murdering his wife. The American justice system. Mwah. As alcohol poured into the nation, a lot of it was going to a new type of drinking establishment that had been booming in popularity. A secret drinking establishment. So secret that from the outside they often look like ordinary shops or homes. So secret that you usually needed a password to get in. So
Password
secret
1, 2,
that
3.
everybody
That's
knew about.
secure. That's secure. Burb down. Thank you for the tier 3, 13 months. I appreciate it.
Speakeasies. And once you were in, the
Hydration.
party went all night long. Scantily clad flappers, snake ladies, jazz. It was a roaring time to be alive. Some publications even
roaring
posted reviews
20s.
of these illegal clubs, and bribes galore kept the party going. It seemed like half the police officers and federal agents in cities like New York were receiving kickbacks from speakeasy owners. Hey! What the Kevin Costner is going on here? Officer O'Hannity, taking bribes? Why am I not surprised?
Why they always have their money on the
Simmons?
table like
For
that?
shame. Mom? What would Dad say? Ask him yourself. Dad would say, quit being such a wet blanket and let Daddy earn his tips. Anytime a speakeasy was shut down by authorities, it seemed like 3 more would just pop up elsewhere. And some neighborhoods were so full of them that one resident began hanging a sign to try to keep partygoers from constantly knocking on her door. It really seemed like the new laws regarding alcohol, in some places, were simply being ignored. And one
No
prohibition
shit.
agent who traveled the country liked to see which city was the most defiant by timing how long it took for him to be offered a beer after he arrived.
That's so
His
fucking
winner?
funny.
New Orleans, where a cab driver offered him a drink after just 35 seconds. Bravo! Many voices in Congress were already speaking out against prohibition and its failures. To display how ridiculous the whole thing was, one Republican congressman gathered the media to all come and watch him drink a homemade beer. When he
That's
asked
such
a
a
passing
great
police
stat.
officer if he'd like to arrest him, the officer said no. Hey Wayne, is all this what you had in mind? I thought we were gonna make the country better, but it almost seems like it's worse. What do you mean? Alcohol consumption is down. Well, that may be true in your small town world, but it says here drinking in some areas is up, as are arrests for public intoxication, drunk driving, and incidents of liver cirrhosis. The general chaos has turned America into a nation of criminals with no respect for the law, and all these attempts at enforcement are just costing the economy valuable money and eating up judicial time and resource. Release the lines.
Time
The
is a
social change and
circle, time
corruption
is a
that
circle,
Wheeler and the
time is a
anti-saloon league
circle.
had been so eager to prevent, in the cities at least, was surging. See, when something's legal, you can usually regulate and control it. But make that thing illegal, and often anything, becomes fair game. Legal drinking age, gone. Mandatory closing hours for clubs and bars, gone. Other unspoken sociocultural rules surrounding alcohol, gone, gone, gone. In speakeasies,
Wait, what was that last one? Well, people shouldn't pee into their neighbor's mailbox while singing Danny Boy. Well, I do that one, but I don't really sing Danny Boy. I'm not really sure. That song might be before my time.
different genders and ethnicities were beginning to mingle in a way they hadn't done before. The Roaring Twenties saw a monumental shift in culture, not least of all because now men and women could flirt in public without being damned for eternity. An outraged Wayne Wheeler did his best to make sure that
Wrong.
anyone breaking
God
the
is
law
still
was
judging
punished.
you.
He had even stricter legislation put in place in New York. But all this did was clog up the justice system with petty drinking violations, and judges began letting everyone off with
Time
light
is a
fines,
circle.
so the judges could get back to dealing with things that actually mattered. You know, things like murder. And there was plenty of murder. Because bootleggers and moonshiners were one thing, but Prohibition had given another kind of criminal an opportunity to make a fortune. Mobsters and gangsters. Hey, Fat Tony, big news. Hey, Fat Joey, what's up? I just got word from Fat Louie here that the government's outlawing alcohol. You know what that means. That means we're gonna be rich. Quick, call Fat Polly and let's go hijack a liquor truck now. All right. Hang on, let me tell my wife first. Hey, Fat Susan!
Lucy
no
is a
pizza-
mobster. Chatty, would you like Lucy in a mobster outfit, only a skirt instead of pants? And then I have like a Mafia fit. Would that be sexo? Yatta!
For Fat Joey tonight, capiche? Stop calling me
With
Fat
fedora? Of
Susan.
course with a
Come on.
fedora! It'll be the cringiest one
Rival
yet!
gangs began to battle in America's cities, raiding each other's transports, assassinating rivals, and trying to take
And a
control of their
Tommy
city's
gun,
illicit
duh.
booze trade. Every city had its top dog. Detroit had the Purple Gang. New England had Charles King Solomon. But no city was as infamous for gang violence and murder as Chicago. The city had multiple gang factions, and
Chicago.
at first, they agreed to stay in their own neighborhoods. But the thing about criminals is that they're criminals, and the agreements inevitably broke down. One day, the leader of the Italian Southside gang was walking along the street when this happened. And he was like, you know, I think I'm done with this, and left for New York, leaving his
Wait,
crime
he
empire
left?
to his chief enforcer, none other than Al Capone. Having been knifed in the face in his younger years, Capone earned himself the name Scarface. Although interestingly, he hated that nickname and preferred to be called Snorky. Snorky
What?
was ruthless, just like any other gang leader in America. But what set him apart from others, the reason he's become synonymous with
Guys, don't call me Scarface. Call me Snorky. And then following that up with he was ruthless, that just does not compute to me.
1920s gang warfare is this. Most other gang leaders would try to keep a low profile because, you know, they're killing and murdering and stuff. But Capone lived for the fame and kept an extremely high public profile.
Jeez,
frequently
I wonder
speaking
why
with the
they
media
got
about
him.
his exploits and presenting himself as a gracious host, providing Chicago with good times. No need to thank me, fellas. I just provide the city with a valuable commodity while doing away with the competition. You mean you murder people? Whoa, who said anything about murder? I just, you know, force my rivals underground. When you do the thing with the hands, it seems like you're talking about
Tax
murder.
evasion?
Whoa, look at you
No,
with the
guys,
brains.
it's so
No, I
easy
just
to evade
help people retire
taxes.
from life. So murder. Al Snorky Capone was somewhat of an enigma, brutal in how he dealt with enemies. But in front of the camera, he was all smiles. One day, he'd be ordering hit after hit. The next, he'd be signing autographs in Wrigley Field. One day, he'd be bludgeoning members of his own gang with a baseball bat for conspiring against him. The next, he'd be playing Santa at a nearby parochial school.
Wait, is this
and
real?
no murder could ever be traced back to him. Just like every other criminal, he stuffed the pockets of city officials
Sorry,
with
Lucy,
cold, hard
can you repeat
cash.
that
And
into the
any
microphone?
Whoa!
did try to oppose him sometimes found themselves being thrown down the steps of City Hall
Houdini,
in broad
welcome.
daylight. Problem solved. The public couldn't get enough of Capone. He quickly became a household name as people romanticized the gang life he lived. And this became a source of concern for the people at the very top. President Hoover? What is it now, Miles? I'm busy. Well, it's just that there's a lot of crime, sir. Crime? How long
I mean, I know they're making fun of it, but like if somebody interrupted me while I was doing a Lego set, I'd be pissed.
has that been happening? Well, since the dawn of man, sir. What? Would you like me to blame it on the Democrats again? No, Miles, I want you to blame it on squirrels. Yes, the Democrats! Now stop wasting my time! Since having a crime lord controlling public officials and winning the hearts of the people probably wasn't a good thing, Hoover personally ordered that something be done about this Capone fellow. But before he knew it, President
face is
Hoover
like-
was also dealing with another major problem. You know him. You love him. Woman. The Prohibition era had been going on for nearly a decade, and anyone with a brain could see that it really wasn't going very well. One person with a brain was Pauline Sabin, an extremely influential and rich woman who served on the
She looks
Republican National
British.
Committee, fundraised for Republican presidents, and had a secret wine room in her giant mansion. She initially supported Prohibition, but was now disgusted at the chaos it had created, and she began a new women's movement, this time not for Prohibition, but against it. Being the extremely influential woman she was, her new organization gained nearly 1.5 million members within 2 years, 5 times that of the Women's Christian Temperance Union.
Women today would call her a pick-me.
She hated that the WCTU claimed to speak for all women, and she began calling for the repeal of the 18th Amendment. President Hoover, I helped fund your campaign, and now I want you to end Prohibition. Miles, what is it I say when I'm not going to do anything? You'll look into it, sir. Oh yeah, that's right. Pauline? I'll look into it. Sabin gave speeches on the steps of Congress and helped start a growing push among the American people against Prohibition. But Hoover, a prohibitionist himself, wasn't budging. Then, on the 14th of February 1929, something happened that shocked the nation. Men, thought to be working for Al Capone, tricked some Irish mobsters into meeting them at a garage in Chicago.
Irish
thinking they were there to
mobsters?
purchase hijacked whiskey.
Wait. There were Irish mobsters? Real? How uneducated on the Mafia am I?
The mobsters were lined up against the wall by men dressed as police, and they were shot. The Valentine's Day Massacre had people outraged. It was cruel, and almost felt like American mobsters had finally crossed a line. People were sick of the violence, and in part, they blamed Prohibition
We
for
want
helping to
beer!
create it. The pressure on Hoover to do something was steadily increasing. Fine. Miles, I want you to put a report together to see if this whole thing is working. You mean the thing where mobsters are becoming increasingly powerful and massacring each other in the streets and everyone is disregarding the law and half our public officials are corrupt and taking bribes? That thing? Yeah, I want to know if it's working or not, Miles. Stop wasting my time! Hoover continued to drag his feet on Prohibition, but after the
What an
Valentine's Day
idiot.
Massacre, he was still determined to do one thing. He wanted Al Capone in prison. Since Capone had been so careful, the FBI were having a hard time charging him with anything, but eventually, they got him. Capone, we know you're supplying Chicago with alcohol and you've been involved in countless murders. Whoa, look at you with the crazy
Whoa.
talk. I ain't done none of that stuff. But you're rich, right? You're damn right I am. And so where'd all the money come from, Capone? All right, I'll let you in a little secret, but you gotta promise not to tell anyone, okay? I don't pay my taxes. Whoa! For all of his murdering, the IRS finally got Capone on tax evasion. At his trial, he didn't seem too concerned though, and spent most of his time having a laugh with his lawyers. Hey Capone, I gotta know, why are you so confident you're gonna win here? Well, Your Honor, because I'm an honest man with a big heart who's passionate about working for the good of the people. And also because I threatened the entire jury's families. Luckily, at the last minute, the judge replaced the entire jury pool with a new one that Capone's men hadn't yet got to, and Capone was found guilty. He was sentenced to 11 years in federal prison.
And let me guess, all those families died anyway.
The harshest penalty ever given to a tax evader. But even with Capone locked away,
Until they realize how many taxes I'm stealing. Oh, fucking dab.
the violence in Chicago and other cities continued. And in response,
Hydration?
the movement against Prohibition continued to grow. And the final nail in Prohibition's coffin came in 1929. After a decade of
Or
booming
should I
economic
say
growth
billion,
under 3 Republican presidents,
$200,000
the stock
VTuber
market
awards, by the
plummeted,
way.
and America was thrown into the grips of the Great Depression. It was an awful time. 1 out of every 5 workers, 15 million people, would lose their jobs. Half the nation's banks failed. Temporary shantytowns were built for the broken homeless in public parks. Suddenly, very few people had time to care about prohibition. Expensive enforcement of an unenforceable law didn't seem like that big of a priority when people were having their homes repossessed and losing their life savings.
No
and many
shit.
began to argue that repealing prohibition would create vital jobs and tax revenue for the government. Yet President Hoover doubled down. Here's that report you asked
He's
for,
so
sir.
stupid.
Prohibition is...
Is he a bad president? I don't know a lot about Hoover, but he sounds like a dumbass.
great. Fantastic news. Sir, it says here prohibition is great at undermining the rule of law in America. Miles, it says the word great. That means good. Now stop wasting my time! The public, increasingly shocked at the violence they saw in the streets, the corruption they saw in the government, the general disregard for the law, and now an economic calamity, had enough. For his re-election, Hoover faced a Democratic candidate who promised to finally do something about prohibition, Franklin D. Roosevelt. Crowds cheered as FDR made his campaign speeches promising to modify the Volstead Act, and Pauline Sabin, a lifelong Republican, along with her 1.5 million supporters, endorsed Roosevelt. And on Election Day, it was a landslide. Before FDR had even taken office, Republicans and
Christ!
on Election Day, it was a landslide.
Oh! That's not a wave, that's a tsunami!
Before FDR had even taken office, Republicans in Congress began the process of passing the 21st Amendment to repeal prohibition. One of FDR's first acts as president was to pass the Beer Permit Act, which made beer legal while the new amendment was being ratified. In 1933, with the passage of the 21st Amendment, prohibition was finally over, and the people celebrated like they'd just won a world war. Bars and taverns were packed. The WCTU were inconsolable. Wayne Wheeler was dead. And the celebration, particularly in America's cities, was intense. Heading into the mid-1930s, the effects of prohibition were clear to see. From now on, culture around drinking had changed, with men and women drinking together, not in saloons, but in bars and taverns. The crime syndicates that had been given so much power through prohibition remained powerful as they moved on to other things.
No shit.
Some states opted to remain dry, with Oklahoma only repealing its prohibition laws in 1959. To this day, there are still counties in America with some form
Time's
of
a
prohibition.
circle, Chatty.
So what did we learn today, kids? What's the big lesson here? What's the moral of this story that we can all take away and apply to our day-to-day lives? Maybe that you shouldn't force your own morals on others who don't share them? Maybe that if you tell Americans not to do something, that's the one thing they'll definitely do. Or maybe there is no lesson. Maybe we're all just a bunch of dumb, stinky idiots, and we're all doomed. The end.
Americans are like the little kid where if you tell them to clean their room, they're like, I was gonna clean my room. And then they don't want to clean their room anymore. Which is to say that that kid is me. And I am American. And I don't know how to change that about myself. I don't even think I can. Good video! Good video! I feel like I understand a lot of things now.